Who would love to cut their grocery spending? I always get tons of questions asking how our family of 8 eats on a grocery budget of $400 to $450 a month.
So today we're going to share some of the tips that have helped us to frugalize our menu. They're simple tips that you can incorporate into the way you shop and cook.
We're Stephanie and Mike from SixFiguresUnder.com, where we share frugal inspiration and financial motivation to help families live frugally so they can pay off debt and reach their financial goals. We're on day 16 of the Frugal Fresh Start Challenge. If you're just joining us today, you can find links to the entire playlist and download the free workbook in the description below.
If you're going strong on your challenge from day 5 to cook at home and day 10 to pack your lunch, then you're already off to a great start. Following through with those 2 challenges alone will save you lots of money over eating out and getting pre-made food.
Today's challenge goes a step further into what to eat and what to avoid to help reduce your grocery budget. But first I should give you the disclaimer that I'm not a dietitian. I'm just a regular mom feeding a family of 8 on a budget. We're fortunate not to have any particular dietary restrictions, except one of our kids chooses not to eat meat. By all means, please adapt today's challenges to your family's dietary needs. As with everything else you do with your money, base your decisions on your own needs and priorities. You do you.
So tip number 1 is to eat less meat. This is basic. Depending on what you're used to, this can mean different things though. If you're used to meat being the main dish every dinner and you want to make a small change, start by having one day a week be a meatless dinner. You can get in the habit of Meatless Monday. It's a way to be more frugal and save your money. But if you want to save more, you need to be a bit more extreme.
On nights that aren't meatless, eat meat more sparingly. You can include meat in your meals without making meat the main event. Make it a side dish. Make it part of the main dish. Ground beef or chicken go a long way when it's in something as opposed to being the star of the show. Instead of eating meat solo, I usually incorporate meat into a soup, sauce, casserole, or other clever disguise like a taco or burrito.
Since meat's one of the most expensive grocery items, you'll notice big savings by reducing the amount of meat you eat. You can get protein from other sources like eggs, beans, nuts, yogurt, and cheese.
Tip number 2 is to eat fruits and vegetables in season. People often expect that if you're eating on a tight budget, then you're just eating junk. But there's no reason why you can't buy fresh fruits and vegetables even on a tight budget. The key is to buy what's in season. Keep in mind that if you're buying produce as opposed to growing it yourself, then you're not necessarily talking about what season it is where you live, but where it's grown. You easily can see what's in season by looking on the front page of the grocery store ad. The in-season produce will be what's the lowest price.
If you want to take this tip to the next level, stock up on what's in season by buying a little more while the prices are low and freezing, drying, or canning the extra. That way you can enjoy it later when it's not in season without having to pay the expensive out-of-season prices.
But if you're just starting out with lowering your grocery budget, don't worry about canning and dehydrating. Just buy what's in season.
So tip number 3, pasta, potatoes, and rice. Carbohydrates get a really bad rap these days, but grain and starches are what have sustained our forefathers for generations. They're filling and frugal. Instead of planning your meal around the meat, let your potatoes be the main dish and use meat as the garnish or the side. We try to alternate the base of our dinners between pasta, potatoes, and rice. And that might sound boring, but with different seasonings and vegetables and meat, you can make a wide variety of meals using the same base.
Tip number 4, make soups and stews. Experiment with new recipes for soups and stews. Not only do they hit the spot on a cool fall evening, but they can be extremely frugal. After some practice, you'll be able to whip up your own soup or stew with whatever you have on hand. In fact, soups and stews are a great way to use leftover vegetables and smaller portions of meat. You can prevent a lot of waste in the kitchen by sticking any vegetables in the freezer before they go bad, then use them in your next soup.
Tip number 5 is to have hot cereal instead of cold cereal. Cold cereal is expensive and it goes really fast, especially with a bunch of kids, and it's not very filling.
Though I love it and could eat it for every meal, especially when I'm pregnant.
But hot cereal like oatmeal or cream of wheat is much cheaper and it's more filling. So to maximize your savings, avoid individual packets. Buy bulk instead.
Or if you want to make your own individual hot cereal packets, That's a good frugal alternative. Tip number 6 is to drink water. Not only is water essentially free, but it's also much better for you than the alternatives. Most people don't drink enough water. Serve water at meal times and throughout the day. If you want to feel fancy, add a slice of lemon.
Tip number 7 to help you frugalize your menu is to calculate the cost of your meals. You probably won't want to figure out the cost of every meal every day, but having a basic grasp on how much a meal costs will help you make your menu more frugal. It's also a good way to be aware of how much you're saving by eating at home. To calculate the cost of your home-cooked meal, simply add up the cost of the ingredients you use. Be sure to calculate the portion used for each ingredient. If you use a third of the block of cheese, use a third of the price of the cheese. To compare meal cost by serving, divide the total cost of the meal by how many servings it makes for your family.
When you know the cost of a meal or the cost per serving, you can easily compare your family's favorite meals to see which are the most frugal. If you've never done this exercise before or thought about the cost of your meals, you'll probably be surprised.
So the Day 16 challenge. Look at your priorities when it comes to food and decide where you're willing to make changes. Maybe instead of having meat every day, you can cut back to having meat 4 days a week. Or instead of making the meat itself the main dish, you can stretch your meat and incorporate it into some other recipe like a stew or a sauce or a casserole. We know that food is personal. There's a huge variation among you in your food preferences and your diet, so as in other challenges, please tailor this one for your family, but make some change. Write your plan down in your Frugal Fresh Start workbook.
Okay, we'll see you next time.